After his infamous screening of The Birth of a Nation in the White House, Woodrow Wilson supposedly said, "It's like writing history with lightning, and my only regret is it is all so terribly true." Despite the popularity of this quote, there's no historical evidence that he actually said it, and his reaction to the film is actually a little bit more nuanced than that. The quote, "history written with lightning," actually appeared first in ads in 1915, such as in this Atlanta newspaper, and wasn't attributed to Wilson until the 1930s. Although Wilson would have agreed with the film's false version of history that saw Reconstruction as a tragic mistake, Wilson actually did have one disagreement with the Griffith's version of history. You can see this disagreement play out in the film itself, when Griffith actually quotes Woodrow Wilson's The History of the American People. Griffith cherry-picks a quote from his book that says that the Ku Klux Klan was a veritable empire of the South to protect the Southern country. If he read the rest of the book, Griffith would have seen that Wilson actually saw the KKK not as heroes, but harmful vigilantes. About the Klan, Wilson wrote, "Brutal crimes were committed. The innocent suffered with the guilty. A reign of terror was brought on, and society was infinitely more disturbed than defended." That's very different than Griffith's vision in The Birth of a Nation of the KKK as saviors of the South. Now, this is not meant to whitewash Wilson's views on history and race. Wilson was a white supremacist who, as a historian, pushed for the lost cause version of history, and as a president, he resegregated much of the federal government. This just goes to show how extreme, even for 1915, Griffith and Dixon's story and film actually was. As for Wilson's personal views on The Birth of a Nation, there are only two sources that we have, and the rest is just mere speculation. Wilson's first mention of the film was 2 months after the infamous White House screening, when Griffith was claiming to the press that Wilson personally had approved of the film. Wilson released a statement to the press confirming that he did indeed screen The Birth of a Nation in the White House, but that the president was entirely unaware of the character of the play before it was presented and has at no time expressed his admiration of it. I find it hard to believe that Wilson wouldn't have known the content of the film before screening it, as he was college buddies with Thomas Dixon, who wrote the novel and play that The Birth of a Nation was based on, The Klansman, which itself was a successful stage play that was controversial and banned in several cities across America. Based on his writings, however, I do think it is plausible that he might not have supported the film's valorization of the KKK, and at the very least, probably didn't want to be associated with the film for purely political reasons. The second instance that we have Wilson speaking about the film is also in a negative light, where he says that the film is an unfortunate production, and that he wished that the screening of it would be avoided, particularly in communities where there are so many colored people. Despite distancing himself from the film in both private and public, the damage had already been done. Griffith got a ton of free publicity and credibility out of the White House screening. Wilson could have come out much stronger against The Birth of a Nation, condemning its violence instead of just simply denying that he ever approved of the film. So in the end, you can't feel too bad that a few infamous words were incorrectly put into his mouth. Wilson's thoughts and feelings on the film are still a really interesting window into the different shades of racism at this point in American history, and really showed just how much The Birth of a Nation capitalized on this little bit of free publicity. Next up in my series, Deep Dive on The Birth of a Nation, I'll be looking at the NAACP's protest against the film and the many obstacles that stood in their way, so make sure you follow me so that you don't miss out.